Greetings gamers, this is Greg Vandervelde here to talk about John Wick Hex. That's right, everyone's favorite dog lover is back for a new adventure. I say back, but really, this is a prequel. And for the first time, we get to experience what it's like to be inside John's head. Unlike what we all expect a John Wick game would be, a high-octane real-time shooter, this game instead is a time-based strategy game that right away makes painfully obvious that Wick is accounting for every second. The whole game is governed by the timelines at the top of the screen, showing John Wick's first and then enemies below. It breaks down the duration it takes to complete tasks for John and his enemies. The timelines will automatically pause if a new adversary spots the boogeyman, or you might call him John Wick, with a realistic level of health, limited bullets, few very precious bandages, and a focus meter. John has to make it through swarms of enemies on his quest to save Winston and Sharon from a new villain aptly named Hex. Ian McShane and Lance Reddick reprise their roles while Keanu sits this one out, letting the infamous Troy Baker take the mantle of another legendary action hero.
The king is dead. Long live the king. He had a daughter, a woman grown. I imagine she felt there was a birthright to be exercised.
A contested birthright.
They always are. They can test mine, too.
So with all this amazing foundation going into this game, what works and what doesn't? We'll start off with what works. The timeline strategy game is heart-pounding and challenging in its own way, and the more you play the game, the more fluid it becomes. The actual gameplay mechanics and governing principles of the game are really what shines the most. The audio is also extremely good, including great sound design, incredible cinematic music, and the voice performances are fantastic. The replay at the end of each level gives the animation style life, as if watching a graphic novel unfold, which leads me to what doesn't work. Though the animation style is fitting for the type of game adaptation of John Wick that it ended up being, it does feel a little unpolished, especially when the animations are based around a hex movement, and they show off John Wick's movements only in 6 directions. The level cinematics could have fixed a lot of this. It would have been wonderful to see the team show off a smoothed out version of what the player just did in the level, coding some type of rhythm and humanity into the people's movements on replay. What this all means is the game is fun for what it is, but is somewhat of a letdown when it's attached to the John Wick franchise. The game itself is not a letdown, as long as the style of game strikes your fancy. John Wick Hex really is an interesting deconstruction of how a well-trained gun fu master would mentally enter into combat with legions of enemies, which is why I'm going to give this action thriller rethink a 7 out of 10. The game itself works and is a fairly challenging, shorter game, but does include fun mechanics and an artful execution with some flaws.